Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have with us Patrick Bell, a doctoral AI researcher and advisor focused on why most technology transformations fail at the leadership level. So we will discuss with him why so many AI initiatives look successful on the surface but fail underneath, and what does AI expose about how organizations really work. Welcome to the show, Patrick.
Thank you, KJ. It's just a pleasure to be with you today. It's a real honor.
You are welcome. Welcome to the show, Patrick. Welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people, a lot of leaders, a lot of organizations across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We'll talk about AI initiative failures, why so many initiatives that look successful on the surface but fail underneath. We'll talk about all this. But before that, let's talk a bit about your journey, your background, so that the audience knows who they are listening to.
Great. Thank you. Well, I'll try and keep it brief and we can dive deeper if we need to. But born and raised in Canada, spent a little bit of my childhood in Zimbabwe. At the age of 22, I moved to Europe. I met my wife. She was from California. We went to graduate school. We ended up living and teaching English in Japan for 12 years. Had our 3 kids there, all made in Japan, high quality. From there, a brief stint in Africa where I got into business consulting and lived through the post-election violence of 2007. Back to the US and Canada for a decade or more. Back to Kenya again for some business consulting. And now I'm living in Madeira, Portugal. That's the Reader's Digest version.
Wonderful, wonderful. Lots of experience there, Patrick. And it's, now you look at the world, it's such a different world with so much of AI integrated in our lives. So, in that sense, I want to understand what is it that you are trying to say with what you are saying, with what you are doing.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I'm learning a lot in my doctorate, and I decided that when AI came into the scene about 3 or 4 years ago, the whole world got trapped in that. And I thought, I want to do something, but not on the level that everyone else is doing it, because the whole world is jumping into automations and things like that. And I thought, if I can learn this in 30 days, so can the world learn this in 30 days. And I wasn't really interested in competing with the world. We also know that, if we can learn it in 30 days, before you know it, automation can also learn it. So I wanted to do a doctorate, and I've been in that for about a year and a half. Honestly, the biggest surprise is this, AI isn't failing because tech doesn't work. It's failing because companies don't have control over how it's used. And what I've been seeing in real companies is that AI works really well in small pockets, and the team tries something and improves productivity and everyone gets excited. But when leadership tries to scale it, everything breaks. And so this is what I'm doing my research around, like not really shifting how do you use AI, but how do you control it at a system level so it actually produces results.
Absolutely. So, to understand that, let's understand it. How does AI pressure actually travel through a company's decision chain?
I'm sorry, KJ, can you repeat the question? You broke up a little bit.
Yeah. How does the impact of AI travel within the organization? Isn't it either an organization chooses to implement it or chooses not to implement it? And when they choose to implement it, they implement it. Why does it fail? It has to do the same thing, that anyone else is using it for. Some places it is successful, some places it is not. So the question from outside, because not everyone is a part of those organizations, why does it not work? Who is the culprit here? Is it the AI, or is it the leadership, or is it the employees who don't want to follow what they should be following?
Wow. Yes, and yes, and yes. I think it looks successful on the surface because most companies are measuring activity. They're not measuring outcomes. So on the surface, everything looks great. You got pilots running, you got tools being used, you got dashboards that are showing engagement. People can say, hey, we're doing AI, but underneath, nothing fundamental has changed. And so we have to talk about accountability. It's one thing to experiment. It's another thing to say this initiative owns a real business outcome and we are going to measure it. And most companies don't make that shift. So what happens is you get this false progress, right? Work is happening. It's not tied to clear ownership. It's not tied to financial impact. And no one is really responsible if it doesn't deliver. And so you get all this local optimization. You know, one team improves something, but it doesn't connect to the rest of the business. And so overall performance doesn't move. And then you have a deeper issue, KJ. There's leaders often don't even have clear visibility into what's actually happening. So they rely on updates that sound good rather than data that shows the real impact. You know, when you think about as AI comes in, it creates all this pressure. And if it's me and my boss is pressuring me to do something and I have to give a report around what AI has done, I'm going to be a little bit careful of what I actually communicate to my boss because I want to look good. I'm protecting myself, the political side of things. I don't want to get behind. I don't want to look bad. And so now I'm showing the boss less than full visibility of what's happening. And if you're the CEO, it's very hard to keep up with that.
Absolutely. Could you give some example? You know, you talked about right now, but I want to something much more clearer for the audience to understand. You know, in terms of when bringing in AI and when does it start failing? Is the decision itself wrong, or is it the implementation process wrong?
I think it starts right at the beginning around control and governance. And so what often happens is, AI comes into an organization, but it comes in often as, hey, everyone, here's this new tool, a new magic thing we can use. Go and experiment and tell us what you come up with. And so that's all great because everyone's enjoying the experimentation. But when you find something that works, no one wants accountability. We rather operate in a bit of a fog, right? So I like to play, but I don't want to be responsible for real results. And so if someone asks, what has this actually changed in revenue or cost or speed? And the answer is vague, that's a red flag, right? So I think this is the first problem. It's around accountability, and that goes back to governance. If I'm the CEO and I'm letting everyone run wild, but I have not set up the governance systems first, there's going to be trouble.
Absolutely. So, what is this governance level? AI is supposed to be a tool and to help you understand, but it looks
Right.
like that the whole organization will be, revolving around the tool itself rather than the other way around.
Right. So you have to have ownership. Like every AI initiative needs a clear owner right in the very beginning. So let's say a team wants to build an AI workflow. Maybe it's automating a client reporting or generating marketing content. It works initially, but no one owns the result. And so governance would be you need to understand what are we trying to accomplish at the very beginning. What are the capital allocation? What finances are we going to put into this? What is the result we're looking for? What is the stop or fail or the go or stop or escalate? What are those thresholds? And you put that in place first, and you measure things and you have clear dashboards that show you what is actually happening. This is very hard to do, especially I think for smaller and mid-sized companies that don't have the resources and the teams, and often the people that don't have the skill sets to really understand AI.
Right, Patrick. Does the size of the organization determine its failure, whether it will be successful or it will fail?
Well, that's the challenge, and that's why I'm doing my doctorate around mid-sized companies, because they do face a real constraint. The larger companies have the bigger budgets. They can have the data teams. They can have the tech teams. Um, they often have the budgets to hire really high-level people who know what they're doing. And then the mid-sized companies that come in, they might not have the flexibility. They might have outdated systems. They don't have the budget to hire the top people. And those really good quality people often want to just go and work for the higher dollars, right? The higher bucks. And so they get poached out of there. So the mid-sized companies have to build their skills internally, but that takes time. Now, the smaller companies, they're just trying to maybe solve one or two little problems. And they're in a whole different level of trouble than mid-sized companies again. So yeah, bigger companies do have the advantage, and they're often the ones that set the rules as well.
Absolutely. So, what is the lesson for leaders here? All those people who are leading those organizations, how do they get started with doing the right way and making it a success for their organization?
Well, I think the leaders need to understand before they can scale, they need to start thinking like operators, right? Leaders need to ask, most leaders ask, where can we use AI? But the better question is, do we have the structure to control it? Because KJ, before you scale anything, you need three things in place. First, you need clear ownership. Every AI initiative needs a real owner tied to a real outcome. So like I've seen situations where a team builds an AI workflow, let's say automating client reporting, and it works initially, but no one owns the result. So when outputs start degrading and prompts need updating and clients start noticing inconsistencies, everyone assumes someone else is handling it, but then the system breaks down. So that is not a technology failure. That is an ownership failure. So first is ownership. Second is visibility. Leaders need to see what's actually working, not activity, but impact. So one example of a company I worked at, we could have 5 or 10 different AI-driven workflows running, like content generation and client onboarding and internal research support. And on the surface, everything looks great. But when you ask, how much time did this actually save? And did it reduce cost? And did it improve output quality? I mean, there's no clear answer. So you have motion, but you have no measurement. Okay, so you have ownership. Number 2, you have visibility. And third, you need decision discipline. You need a way to decide what gets funded, what gets stopped, and what gets scaled. And so you can have multiple experiments running at the same time and different team members testing tools and building small automations and trying new approaches. And some of them work, but maybe nothing gets formally scaled. And so an owner has to ask why, because there's no agreed process that says this is successful, this gets rolled out, this gets killed, and everything just sits in the gray zone like it's kind of useful. And that's where the value gets stuck there.
Absolutely, Patrick. So, when do you come into the picture, Patrick?
Thank you. Well, I have a control system. Like I've been learning in my doctorate about all of this. And so I decided I'd build something a little bit different because of all the research that I've seen, people have this transformation framework. And you've probably heard this, or the roadmap or anything. And you've got all these regular things happening. Like you get clear on vision and readiness, and you prioritize things and pilot and scale and train and all that. But I think what I've seen is very different, is that you have to have control layers that are like a foundation that sit across everything. And that's governance, it's capital discipline, it's change management. Because if you don't control decisions and money and behavior, AI does not scale. It just fragments. and it causes a lot of pressure in the company and a lot of frustration and anger. So basically what I do, I come into companies, I work directly with C-level people, and I help them with that control system so that they can stay on track. And so just an example, I think is a company that's doing $10 million a year. If I can help them avoid a problem or increase their profitability by 1%, okay, that's still $100,000 of impact. And I think, oh, I'm a good ROI for that. I can help those people very easily.
Absolutely. Does the is an organizational culture a requisite for successful, implementation of an AI initiative? One does should a leader first look at that part also? You have traveled to many places across the world. Which country, which place looks like that their organizations will have better success with AI initiatives?
Well, I'm sorry I haven't been to India yet, but maybe after this um, podcast, I might get an invitation. But I've lived in Japan. Japan is a very exacting culture, but they're also extremely cautious. And so I'm not sure that is the best culture. I've done 2 long stints in Kenya, Nairobi, Kenya, and they're more aggressive and they're extremely positive and optimistic, but often lack the discipline to do things well or the training to do things well. My only other environment I've worked in is really North American and specifically US. I've worked for a US company for 6 months that's actively in AI transformation. I think it's not so much the country you're in or the culture you're in, it's the culture that the CEO puts in place. So, for example, a wonderful company I've just in, the CEO has a definition of what's done. And if the person comes and he says, have you done your work? He says, yes, it's done. If the CEO has a different definition of done than the employee, there's going to be problems because there's only 2 opinions and the CEO's opinion is going to count. So you better have a CEO and a leader who has really good organizational and good governance over his entire group and manages well. I think that's the difference I've seen because I've seen wonderful CEOs in Kenya and I've seen good leaders in Japan. But if they're not disciplined in their governance and they don't have systems and they're not demanding accountability, AI will just break their business.
Absolutely. And talking of, about this whole thing about breaking the business, is it a big thing that needs to be thought over? Because well-running organizations without much of AI implementation till now, very successful, going on the right path, achieving all the goals that they set out. And suddenly, because AI is a requirement in today's time, as many say, and they go out and try and implement it. And that AI initiative fails. And it takes us so much of time and effort as well as money from a well-running organization. The AI which was supposed to make you more efficient suddenly, exposes all the chinks in the armor
Yep.
and you fall flat. Does
Correct.
it look like that scenario for several organizations? I would say many organizations, Patrick.
Yeah, that's exactly what's happening. Now, here's the challenge. I'm also an educator, and I've taught university and college level. I love teaching students who actually like to learn. And here's the challenge: if you just take this to a university level, let's say we have a standard of here's what we want the student to achieve, and many universities are saying now we want you to achieve the standard, but don't use AI. To change a curriculum in many countries could take 2 years to get all the approvals. So why not? Let's just say, for example, can AI increase our ability to think reason, access to knowledge, of course. But let's just say, for example, that AI gives us an 80-point IQ increase. All right, so now maybe I'm going to just give myself a little bit above average. I'm 120 IQ, for example, and 80 gives me, now I'm 200 IQ. If some of the world is thinking at a 200 IQ level, and I just decide to go back to my regular business at 120 IQ level, I will very soon get left behind and I'll be out of business. Okay, for students in a university, why not increase the expectations of what they should be doing? AI now also comes into the business and says, we are now expecting you to do more with AI, and you better do it faster, and you better do it with more precision and less mistakes. And so what happens, think about this organizationally, KJ. AI brings pressure inside an organization because AI doesn't just add capability, it compresses time and it exposes weaknesses faster. So before AI, yes, businesses are doing well. A broken process can limp along for months. Nobody really notices. But with AI, things move faster. And now that same weakness shows up almost automatically, and pressure builds in a few places at the same time. So for example, leaders feel pressure to move quickly because everyone else is talking about AI, and teams feel pressure to adopt AI even if they're not fully ready. And the system itself feels pressure because decisions and data and workflows are suddenly being pushed harder than before. But it's all inside a system that isn't built to handle pressure, and it starts to crack. And so now you see confusion increase, not decrease. You see rework. You see frustration between teams. You see initiatives starting and stopping. And so whatever is weak in the organization gets stressed immediately. Think about like this little analogy. If I'm riding a bicycle and my front wheel is not perfectly aligned, it's going to wobble a little bit. That's fine if I'm going 5 kilometers an hour. But put me on a downhill doing 60 kilometers an hour, and this whole thing becomes frightening. And I think that's what's happening to a lot of businesses in the world today. AI has accelerated their speed, and they cannot slow down or they'll get out of business.
Absolutely, absolutely, Patrick. That's a lot of, insight into the way things are happening and things are going. There is so much to learn about all this from you. And I'm sure a lot of people, a lot of leaders, a lot of businesses across the world would like to connect with you and understand all this and perhaps also be your client. What's the best way for them to do so?
Thank you. Well, my website is aitransformationpartner.com. And you can go to my website. At the bottom, there's an email, there's LinkedIn you can connect. So send me an email. I'll be very happy to meet with and talk with anyone. And I'm very approachable. So connect with me on LinkedIn, connect with me by email. Those are the two best ways.
Absolutely, absolutely. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you.